him.
I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Smack 'em a gob, it's time for the only news that matters. And since it's been very slow in the news, I found an article on Yngwie Malmsteen on loudersound.com where he talks about several people. So, you know, since the news is slow, I'm going to talk about a couple people he talks about, and then, you know, do future only news that matters where he talks about other people. In this one, Ritchie Blackmore. He said, I first met Ritchie Blackmore at the Rainbow, believe it or not. I was in Alcatraz at the time, and I saw him sitting there in a booth by himself. I was just a little, you know, loud kid then, 19 years old, and I went up to him and said, hey man, I'm playing tonight. I have your old singer Graham Bonnet in my band. And he looked at me like I probably would have looked at somebody coming up to me now like, yeah, can you see I'm having some food here? About a year and a half later, I ended up getting the same guitar tech as Ritchie Blackmore back in the day. He told me, hey, Ritchie's playing Long Beach Arena with Deep Purple. So I went and saw the show, and then I went backstage and asked somebody if I could say hi to Ritchie. They laughed and said, no one says hi to Ritchie. So I walked back to my car, and this guy started running after me with a camera yelling, hey, 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 Ritchie wants to see you. Ritchie wants to see you. Can you believe this? Like it was a big deal. But he takes me to see him, and I walk into Ritchie's dressing room, and he's laying in a table in his black trench coat, like Burt Reynolds, you know, up to his elbows. And he's looking at me, trying to intimidate me, and I said, hey dude, what's going on? And I took his soccer ball and was in the room and started bouncing it around. He asked, do you play soccer? And all of a sudden, he was a little kid. We hung out, you know, the entire night, just talked about music, and he gave me one of his bracelets that said, this is good if you get bad tendonitis. Because I had some tendonitis in my hand. He told me all the tricks about eating bananas and drinking Gatorade and everything. We had the greatest time. A couple years later, he's playing again. I come see him, and he didn't want to know me. But it's okay. People have to be in a mood. I mean, people come up to me, and I don't feel like, you know, sometimes too. So I'm not knocking him. Ritchie is awesome, and I love him. All right, there he goes. That first Ritchie Blackmore, which, man, when Yngwie was new on the scene, the way he dressed, his stage presence was 100% Ritchie Blackmore. Not his playing. His playing was, you know, a little closer to Uli Roth than Ritchie Blackmore. But yeah, man, he broke the guitar. He did all that stuff that Ritchie was doing before him, you know. And I love Ritchie Blackmore. I got to put Ritchie Blackmore in my top 3. You know, sometimes it switches, but as today, Edward Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and Ritchie Blackmore are my 3 favorite guitar players. And yeah, it must have been great for Yngwie to, you know, meet Ritchie since he was his idol and all, even though Yngwie doesn't admit it. You know, he did admit his first album was Fireball when he was a little kid, but he didn't really cite Blackmore as an influence and stuff. But come on, you can't tell me that guy didn't influence your look and your stage presence. That's ridiculous, you know. Playing, yeah, I can kind of see that Yngwie's a different player than Ritchie. Anybody can, really. But people get fixated on the image and the stage presence, and it bleeds over to the music. It's like, he's just a Ritchie Blackmore clone. But you can't say that when you hear something like, I don't know, Evil Eye, Krina Corey, you know, solos like that. Come on. Anyway, so let's move on. Now, Lemmy. Now, they asked him, have you ever met Lemmy? And he said, let me tell you something. Me and Lemmy were musically very different, but as people, we would hang out. The very first time, I'm trying to remember, it was probably at a little bar on Wardour Street in London's Soho. And I used to go there, and he was always there. And then he moved to America, and I hung out with him here too. But not as much as I did in England. We talk about history and stuff like that, things that other people didn't do. Over the years, we did gigs together, and I've got some funny pictures with him, especially in the days when everybody was partying and stuff. But it's hard to pick out just one story. It was a fuzzy period, so to speak. In fact, I found a picture just the other day of me and him, and we're like, how should I say, in a happy mood. All right, there's his Lemmy story, which is interesting. And Lemmy was a history buff. I didn't know that about Yngwie, but Lemmy rules. Yeah, what can I say? I own every single album Motorhead's ever done. Their whole discography, I got it all. I worship the guy. Anyway, all right, let's move on. Next, Ronnie James Dio. He said, I just landed in America, and the guys in Steelers said, hey, let's go to the Rainbow. And I said, what's that? That was 1982, so it was at like the height of the scene. When I was 12 years old, I saw my very first concert. It was a Stockholm concert hall, which is a classical theater. For some reason, they put a rock band there, and it was Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, and it was Ronnie Dio and Ritchie Blackmore, Cozy Powell. So it was pretty surreal for me to see Ronnie there at the Rainbow. We started talking and everything, and he was very friendly, a very nice guy. We became friends right there and there. Later on, ended up living next to each other. We ended up living next to each other. There was an Indian restaurant nearby called Star of India that we used to sit in. I recorded with him. I have hundreds of pictures of me and him playing on stage and that stuff. We were very close. Me and Ronnie hung out a lot. Probably the most out of all these people. All right, there you go, man. What can you say? I mean, anybody out there that's met Ronnie James Dio, you know what I went through when I met him. He couldn't have been nicer. The nicest musician, nicest person, period, I ever met. And where Ronnie and Yngwie only recorded one thing that was released was Dream On the Aerosmith compilation, Aerosmith tribute album. They did Dream On, Ronnie Dio and Yngwie. But wow, all the other stuff they recorded, man, I would love to hear that, but I don't think that'll happen. All right, now I'm going to go to the last one, and we'll come back. Let me tell you what future episodes have. Metallica, Brian May, David Lee Roth, Angus Young and Brian Johnson, Gene Simmons, Eddie Van Halen, and it says Eddie Van Halen almost. So the last person I'm going to talk about here is Phil Mogg. He said, I was gigging with Steeler, and Phil Mogg from UFO came to the show. He said, I'm putting UFO back together. Come to my house tomorrow. And I was like, wow, I'm going to get to play with UFO? I was so excited. Next morning, I got a call from people in the Alcatraz camp. Although it wasn't called Alcatraz yet, they didn't have songs. They didn't have anything. They just had an idea to put a band together with Graham Bonnet as a singer. I went and met with them the next day, and I had to go from there right to Phil Mogg's house. Phil Mogg, super nice guy, and he wasn't well together at the time. As much as I love UFO, I called the Alcatraz guys from Phil's house and said, okay, I'll join your thing, but two conditions. I write the songs, and we'll get a new drummer. I think joining UFO would have been a good thing, but it is what it is. I did what I did, and I don't regret anything. Everything is a learning curve. Man, that would have been super interesting if Yngwie joined UFO. Maybe his name would have got out a little faster than Alcatraz. I don't know. Alcatraz was a beast, but it didn't take off. you know, in the States. It wasn't a big band, and UFO wasn't either, but they had more of a name. So if Yngwie would have joined UFO at the time, I don't know. I think people would have been saying, man, that guy in UFO, the new guitar player, I think it would have propelled them to superstardom much faster. But that's it, man. That's part one of Yngwie Malmsteen's stories of all these people. So whenever there's a slow news day, I'll put another one up, which probably will be soon, unless something happens, man. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And tell me what you all think in the comments below about Yngwie and the people he talks about. I sure would appreciate that. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring that little notification bell and like the video. It's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty. Listen to Black Sabbath and smack 'em a gob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston, and so never more shall we see you again.